Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. Right, so good morning, everybody. We'll start with prayers. Om Bhuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti
Wait,
Shanti.
this one.
Let us meditate on the glorious effulgence of that Supreme Being who has created the universe. May she enlighten our hearts and direct our understanding. Om, peace, peace, peace. Okay, I shall make the same request again. Can I please ask everybody to go on mute, please? Everybody will have a good experience and there's no background noise. So please, 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 can everybody go on mute? Right, so last week we continue our journey. We did a reconciliation between Nirakar and Sakar. We said, how can one and the other be the same? One's got form, one's got no form. And we gave the example that Sri Ramakrishna and Paramahansa gave us, saying, yeah, it's the same as water and ice. Ice takes a shape, water doesn't, and the shape that ice takes is whatever vessel you put it in. Sakar is the same. The shape of the deity we worship is the shape that we actually give them. We also did a consideration within Sakar itself. We said we have all these many different gods and goddesses, and how can they all be one? Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, slok number 11, actually gives us this saying when Krishna said, whichever form you worship in, I will come to you in that form. So the big fellow himself is saying to us that all the Ishtas, the gods in totality, we call them Ishwar or Ishvara, the deity of your choice, you will call them your Ishta or your Ishtadev. So all the Ishtas eventually lead to Brahman. And then we talk about the three Gunas, the quality of Sattva, which is the highest, the quality of Rajas, which is force and motion, activity. And then we talk about Tamas, the lowest quality. And we say we should always try and move away from Tamas and move towards Sattva, because it is Sattva that is going to take us to our final destination. Right, then let's have a look at moving further. We said Sakar and Nirakar, Saguna and Sakar are what we will be focusing on for the next few weeks, probably next few months. So, how do you relate to Brahman? Something you can see, something you cannot see, you cannot feel, you cannot worship. How do you relate to that? It is only good for people sitting in caves, meditating, but for the vast majority of the masses, it is not good. So our rishis were very, very sharp cookies. They wanted everybody to get a taste of this nectar called God, Brahman. So they came up with the idea of giving this Brahman three different roles. These three different roles we call Trimurti, i.e. God appearing in three different roles, a Brahman appearing in three different roles. And these roles were, first and foremost, Brahma, the god of creation. So Brahma actually brought this whole universe into creation. Of course, these are stories. Vishnu is the chap who will give the quality of preservation. He has a job of keeping everything running smoothly. This is why you find more people actually are devoted to Vishnu, because everybody wants to keep going, don't they? And the idea of Shiva. Shiva is the god who actually wraps it all up. A lot of people say when people die, the souls go to Shiva. Take it for what it's worth. But at the end of the day, when the universe is coming to an end, then Shiva is the chap who actually wraps it all up. Brahma is something we don't need to talk about. I think there's only possibly 2 Brahma mandirs in the entire world, if I remember correctly. I've never come across a Brahma devotee. The 2 main deities we need to talk about are Vishnu and Shiva. And then we have the other gods who have come into being as well. We have Ganesh, who is the second son of Shiva and Parvati. We have Hanuman, who is a devotee of Ram. We have Kartikeya, who is the oldest son of Shiva. So again, for the syllabus, we'll be talking about Ganesh and Kartikeya as well. But then, hey, we say, this is looking like male domination. Why can't we have God as our mother? Yes, the Rishi says, why not? Of course, we can have God as the mother. So we have goddesses. We have Goddess Parvati, who then manifests as Goddess Durga and Goddess Kali. We have Goddess Lakshmi, and we have Goddess Saraswati. Although our syllabus requires us to cover Goddess Durga on her own, we will be talking in a reasonable amount of detail about all the goddesses, because goddesses are loving and the mothers are all very, very loving. And then it is believed that Vishnu takes avatars. The word avatar comes from the root of dare, which means one who descends. So this is God coming down to us, taking a human form and interacting with us. And there was 10 of them, of which perhaps the most famous ones are Ram and Krishna. And we will be talking about the avatars as well in more detail. And the avatars actually give us another story as well about evolution of this universe. So this, in a nutshell, are Sargun and Sakar. So let's start with our first deity we're supposed to talk about, Lord Vishnu, Bhagwan Shri Vishnu. He is known as the preserver. He keeps our universe going. He keeps our lives healthy and all that. That's what he's supposed to do. Whether he does it or not, you can decide. I don't know. But he's supposed to do this, all this for us. I think there's still people who are not on mute. I can still hear some backgrounds. So can please, people go on mute, please. Unless somebody is okay with that. I can just hear some noise in the background. So can I please ask everybody to go on mute, please? Thank you very much. Okay. So Vishnu is known as the preserver. So why? First of all, let's look at the features he's given us. We have 2 features, 2 images we see. We'll cover the first one. Is shown as standing up. His face is blue. Sometimes his whole body is blue. If you think about Shiva, we'll come to Shiva later, so we won't talk about Shiva right now. But Vishnu, body is blue, face is blue, and the same applies to Ram and Krishna. And Latika Ben, when she talks about these 2 avatars, we'll talk in more detail as well. He's got 4 arms. One of his arms, he's wearing he's holding a conch shell. He's holding a lotus flower in the second arm. He's holding a Sudassian Chakra in the third arm, and he's got a Gada, a mace, in the fourth one here. So what are they telling us? Oh, the one thing that's not shown in the image, missed that one out, didn't I? He has a vehicle called the eagle, the Garuda. And you can imagine if we were creating Vishnu today, his vehicle would be a Jumbo 747, wouldn't it, rather than an eagle. But hey, we are stuck with the eagle. That has a meaning as well. So let us look at why we have given Vishnu these figures. Face and body, all blue, represents infinity. So if I ask you a question, maybe not today, I'm looking out of my office, it's pretty cloudy, but if it's a nice sunny summer's day and you go out and look up into the sky, what do you see? And you say, I see the sky. And you say, what color is the sky? The sky is blue. And how big is the sky? It just seems to go on forever. The sky is so vast, it for us at a human level, it represents infinity. So hence we give Vishnu the color blue, signifying that he is infinite. He's bigger than the biggest. Then we have the 4 arms holding the various objects. The conch shell represents the sound Om. Now, just a bit of a background here. When our rishis discover Om in deep meditation, they did not hear the sound Om. They felt a vibration in the universe. They felt this vibration which felt like Om. And therefore, we give the conch shell the sound of Om, and we say, if God is to be given a name, then the best name we can give God is Om. This is why the best mantra or the best japa you can do is keep chanting Om. And the next best one, of course, is the Gayatri. The lotus flower is an interesting character. It represents glorious existence, liberation. It actually, we'll talk about Vivek and Vairagya at a later point, but if you think of a lotus flower, where does it grow? It grows in very, very murky waters. But no matter what dirt falls on it, does anything stick to it? Nothing. Everything slides off this lotus. The lotus petal is always clean. So the lotus represents basically existence that we are not clouded or shrouded by any nonsense that the world can throw at us. Yeah, a bit like your Teflon, you know, when you have your frying pan, nothing sticks to it. Nothing sticks to a lotus flower. The Sudassian Chakra represents the mind. Although many people have read the Srimad Bhagavad Puran or maybe watched some videos, although you have the chakra going on Vishnu's head, whenever he actually launches that chakra, he never throws it like that. He just looks at it and away it goes. Yeah. So the Sudarshan Chakra represents the mind. The mind is a very, very powerful tool, more powerful than people actually realize. And the mace, the Gada, is quite a popular weapon. It represents mental and physical strength. Anything we do in life, we have to have a strong body and a strong mind. And the eagle shows respect for life. All the animals that show with God show that we actually have respect for life. Of course, the eagle is a powerful flying machine as well, so it is called a vehicle as well, but it really shows respect for life. Right, let's move on. Now, of course, many of you will heard the name Hari. Vishnu is also referred to as Hari, and Hari means one who attracts. Shiva is called Hara, and we'll talk about Hara when we talk about Shiva, but for Vishnu, he's known as Hari, hence Ram, Krishna, they're all called Hari. Right, another popular image we see of Vishnu is him lying on a serpent, on a coiled serpent. And sometimes you will see goddess Lakshmi sitting by his side. Now, what does a coiled serpent really mean? Okay. When you look at a serpent, a snake, it can only move forward. So it tells us that once this universe comes into creation, it just keeps moving forward. You cannot go back, which is represented by the snake moving forward until you come to the end of the universe and you start again. So many physicists talk about time travel, traveling backwards or forwards. No, you have to keep moving like the snake does. The word shesh itself means that which remains, and nag means energy. So at the end, what remains is energy. Energy is Brahman. Interestingly, I just read, I was watching a lecture by Roger Penrose. He was he's a physicist at Oxford University. And he was talking about the universe and black holes and stars and all that. And he said at the end, all the black holes, if we go forward in time, all the black holes will actually gobble each other up, and then all the material will disappear, and the only thing that will remain is radiation. And I thought, that's sheshnag. Yeah, so science is now catching up what our rishis have been saying for a long, long time. Right, so that covers the idea of Vishnu, his features, and what they actually signify. One thing we're also supposed to do is to talk about one story about Vishnu. So we will actually talk about, what remains is energy, Brahman. We'll talk about a story that comes out of the Vishnu Puran or the Srimad Bhagavad Puran. This is the story of the Samudra Manthan, also called the churning of the oceans. So like all stories start, once upon a time. Yeah, although this was going on and off. You used to have the Devas, they're called the good guys. And then you have the Asuras, the bad guys. And over cycles and cycles and cycles, sometimes the Asuras had the upper hand, and sometimes Devas used to have the upper hand, and this always went back and forth. And there came a point where the Devas had been beaten a big time by the Asuras, and they just were really struggling to recover. So what did they do? Vishnu, being the preserver, says, right, my lord, what do we do? And Vishnu goes, I've got a plan. He says, see this cosmic ocean, this Milky Ocean here? He said, under there is a pot of nectar called the Amrit. It is a pot, it is a nectar of immortality. If you can churn it out and drink it, that is it. Nobody can touch you after that. And the Devas are starting to get excited. Goes, yeah, wow, how do we do this? And Vishnu goes, hang on. There's the other side of the story. You guys are not strong enough to churn the ocean. So you will need to get help from the Asuras. So they came up with a plan and said, okay, let's talk to the Asuras. And obviously Asuras are the bad guys. They are nothing but greed. And as soon as they found out there was a chance of getting this nectar of immortality, they joined in. They said, right, how do we churn the ocean? We need, don't forget, this is at a cosmic level. It's not at the level of the Earth. It is out in the galaxies somewhere, or maybe even in between galaxies. Huge, huge, huge. We need something to churn the ocean with. So they said, right, we'll ask a mountain. There was a big mountain called Mount Mandara. He says, can you be the pin to actually allow us to churn? Mount Mandara agrees, saying, yeah, of course, I'll be the pin. That's right, we need a big, big rope now. Where do we find the rope? They could not think of a rope, so they went to the snake, that sits on Shiva's neck. The snake's called Vasuki. And says, since you are a cosmic snake, can you be the rope? And Vasuki said, of course. So the mountain was placed in the bottom of the ocean. Vasuki was wrapped around, and the Asura said, right, we'll take the head, and the Devas say, we'll take the head and you take the tail. And Asuras, being always not sure, says, hang on, guys. No, you're trying to trick us here. We'll take the head and you take the tail. And the Devas says, yeah, of course, we'll do that. So anyway, the scene is now set. So you got Vishnu supervising, you got the mountain, and then you got the Asuras at the head, the Devas in the tail, and they start churning, churn, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you must remember, this is cosmic level. So time is, you're talking about hundreds and thousands of years, huge, vast amounts of time. And then they start, the mountain started sinking into the ocean. They said, oh, this is a problem. What do we do? So they went back to Vishnu and said, oh, my Lord, help us. What do you do? So here Vishnu takes the avatar of Kurma, a tortoise. And the mountain is now placed on the tortoise sitting on the ocean bed, and they start churning. Churn, 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 churn. And initially, for quite a long time, nothing came out, and Vasuk is getting fed up, so he starts spewing venom out. And of course, the Asuras were on the head, so they took the brunt of the venom. So back to Vishnu, saying, "Guy, hey, my lord, help us, we're in trouble here." So Vishnu comes out, he spreads the, so disperses the venom, and says, "I start again." And they start churning, and quite a few things started coming out. They start getting pearls and jewels and diamonds, and this was all spread, shared out between the Asuras and the Devas. Then came out a pot, and they're all getting excited. This is a pot of nectar of immortality, but it was a very, very, very poisonous pot. This pot was so poisonous that had it been let loose, it would have destroyed the universe. It was that powerful poison. So they all go worried and say, "What do we do?" Wow, let's go back to Vishnu. He's the one who gave us his plan. And Vishnu goes, "Haha, sorry guys, not this time. I've gone as far as I can. So you're on your own." And they got very worried. And Vishnu goes, "Listen, there's perhaps somebody else who can help you out. Tell us, my lord, what do you do?" Ask Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva may be able to handle the poison for you. So they take this pot of poison, goes to Shiva, and cut a long story short, Shiva says, "Yeah, I'll take it." And he actually swallows the poison and holds it in his neck. It does not allow it to go into his stomach, otherwise it would have destroyed him as well. And Shiva's neck started turning blue because poison turns the skin blue. This is why Shiva is also known as Nilkant. Anyway, now the poison sorted out, they go back, they start churning, and again, quite a few things start coming out. Amongst that was Goddess Lakshmi, came out of the ocean. Goddess Lakshmi went and became the consort of Shiva. Something, Dhanvantari came out, who is known as the father of Ayurveda. Something called the Kalpariks came out, which is a wish-fulfilling tree. And this was taken by Indra to the Devlok, and many stuff came out, and the churning carried on. And eventually the pot of nectar came out. And guess who grabbed it first? The Asuras. They said, "Wow, we have got it." And they said, "We're not sharing this out. Devas, you can take a hike. You know, this is ours." And back to Vishnu. "What do you do, my lord? The Asuras have the nectar. If they have it, then that's the end of the universe. I mean, this is negative. I mean, these guys are the bad guys." So what does Vishnu do? He takes on another form of a very, very pretty young lady called Mohini. So this is called the Mohini avatar of Vishnu. And she comes out, she comes to where the Asuras and Deva was, and she starts dancing amongst them. And of course, the Devas were the good guys. They knew what was going on. The Asuras started lusting after this very, very beautiful, pretty young lady called Mohini. And whilst they were lustful, they forgot about this pot of nectar. So what happens? The Devas grab hold of the nectar, they divide it amongst themselves, and then they drink this nectar of immortality. And the Asuras, obviously, they got quite angry, and there was not much they can do about it. So this is the story of the churning of the Milky Ocean. Now, this is a story, but as Avni Ben says last week, we have two branches of scriptures. The Smritis are storytelling, and Ithiyas, history, and the Shrutis. The Shrutis are not easy for everybody to understand, so our rishis give us stories, but behind the story, there are some deep meanings. So let's get some simple meanings out first. So the positive message from the story is that Vishnu is Brahman. He's here, there, and everywhere. He's supervising the churning, he's holding the mountain up, he's dispersing the poison. So is Brahman in human form or material form. The importance of cooperation. Sometimes you have to cooperate with the enemy, but to get results, you need to sometimes cooperate to achieve results, but always be very careful who you cooperate with. It also tells us the fact that Devas and Asuras kept winning and losing and keeping and losing. Talks about the Hindu view of cycles. We don't have linear, we just go back and forth. As you said, this churning must have gone for thousands of years. So the idea of patience, keep waiting. Yeah, things come to all those who wait is a famous English saying. And perseverance, of course. Do not give up. The first time you fail, get up and carry on. And eventually you will get the results you want. So what are the negative sides? First of all, greed. We can see this from the side of the Asuras. Sometimes you have to think about trust, whether you should trust people or you should be very careful. You need to think very, very carefully. And the idea of lust, you can see how destructive the idea of lust can be. Okay, let's just take a slightly deeper dive into the philosophical meanings of this story. So we start with Vishnu is a representation of Brahman. I've already said that. Mount Mandara comes from two Sanskrit words, man and dhara. Man means mind, dhara means focusing your mind. So it represents concentration. That is why you have the point, the pointed of the mountain, which represents one pointed concentration. The Kurma avatar represents withdrawal. We'll talk a lot more about this when we talk about Shiva, because if you think outside every Shiva mandir, there's a tortoise as well. And the meaning here is the same as the meaning for Shiva's tortoise in the mandirs. The cosmic Milky Ocean represents the vastness and the
Vishnu is
depth of
representation of Brahmana.
the cosmic Milky Ocean represents the vastness and the depth of human consciousness. Last few weeks, we have talked about the Jiv Atman. Most of us are aware that we are the Jiv Atman, but we never try to delve into it. Once we sort of go into it, it is vast, 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 huge, and deep. So we are trying to dive into the Milky Ocean, our consciousness.
அப்புறம் பேசலாம் அழைச்சிருச்சா
Can you please go on mute, please? Please, can you please go on mute? Thank you. Vasuki, first of all, the head represents desires, the desire to actually gain immortality, but for that you need a rope. And the rope is what you use to actually churn your consciousness. The poison has several meanings. The most popular meanings are that when you go through penance, when you start finding your spiritual ways, you actually go through quite a lot of pain. But at a more human level, when you think about it, every one of us actually encounters poisons in our everyday lives. With the poisons of people criticizing us and being jealous of us, and there's lots and lots of things. If we took them all on board, then it would destroy us. But if we just sort of have like a Teflon body and say, yeah, this poison's coming in, I'll just hold it in my neck and spew it out again, then it's not going to affect us. So at a practical level, this poison means everything negative that comes on our way. The nectar of immortality, moksha, simple as that. There's no other meaning for that. Goddess Lakshmi, of course, the owner of the wealth in the entire universe is God, Vishnu the preserver. The rest of us who hold wealth, we're just mere keepers, guardians of that wealth. It doesn't belong to us. Yes, so the more we spread it, the better. Dhanvantari is the father of Ayurveda. So for spiritual progress, we'll talk more about this when we talk about yoga. But for spiritual progress, you need both good physical and mental health. This is why yoga suggests physical health first. The pearls and jewels that come out represents the fruits of actions. Yeah, so if you're an asura, then pearls and jewels mean something for you. If you're a deva, and then sort of just diving into that consciousness is your fruit of that action. Oops. Somebody has started sharing their screen. Can you please take it off?
There's some echo going on and it's very irritating for the ears. I don't know, it's some disturbing noise as well.
Right, I'm sorry, somebody has right, somebody shut me down somehow, or did I shut myself down? Right, just give me a right. So the Kalpavriksha, wish fulfilling tree, this is a mythological tree. I don't know what else we can talk about that. The Devas and the Asuras are within ourselves. Remember last week?
I cannot see your screen. I cannot see your screen. All I see is a picture of some town in Italy, I think.
So somebody by the name Krishna Thakrar is sharing his screen.
Yeah, so hang on, let's try again. Right, okay, sorry, I shared the wrong screen. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Krishna
sorry about
Thakrar.
that.
Krishna Thakrar is the teacher, right? He's the person who's talking.
Yeah. This is the downside of having multiple screens. I was sharing the wrong one. Right, okay, so the Kalpavriksha is a mythological wish fulfilling tree. So there's not much to say about that. Whether they really exist in reality, I don't know. Although I'll tell you, when Avniben talks about Ramakrishna, we might actually talk about the Ramakrishna Kalpatarude. This actually kind of ties up very nicely with the idea of the Kalpavriksha. The Devas and the Asuras are us. Last week we talked about the three Gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. The Devas are the Rajas, sorry, the selfless side of the Rajas and the Sattvic tendency in ourselves. The Asuras are the selfish Rajas and the Tamasic qualities within us. So this is what we need to focus on, and this is a constant fight within ourselves, between Devas and Asuras, between Tamas and Sattva. So these are some of the spiritual meanings behind the story of the Samudra Manthan. Avniben, apologies, I've taken up 5 minutes of your time, so I'll stop sharing now and pass it over to Avniben for a second session. Sorry about that, Avniben.
No problem at all, no problem. Thank you. Okay, I am going to start sharing my screen. Tell me when you see it.
Yep, we can see that now.
Okay, so thanks, Krishna Bhai. So I'm going to move on to a different section of the paper, actually. So I'm going to move on to Hindu life and ceremonies, which is actually probably the most straightforward part of the paper. So if I move on there, so paper 1, as you can see, is divided into 3 sections: gods, which is what Krishna Bhai has just been focusing on, and you could see that he's just done Vishnu, and he'll continue with the other gods listed there. I am actually moving on to paper 2. It seems a little bit odd that we're moving here, but actually this is that there is logical sense in what we're doing. I'm going to cover this section B of paper 2. And we call this the 4x4. So there are four sections, and within each of those 4 sections, you'll see there's 4 subsections. So we call this the 4x4. And today I'm going to start on the 4 varnas, which is essentially the caste system, as others would know it. So this section talks about really Hindu life. How do Hindus live their life? And Indians and Hindus are very good at organizing. So we've even organized how we live our life, or how we should live our life. So it follows a nice logical path. So let's dive in. Hindu life and ceremonies. So we look at, as I say, the 4x4, the 4 varnas first, which is the caste system. And, you know, as you can see, within the 4, there are 4 different types of castes that we refer to. So that's the 4 varnas. Then we'll go on to 4 ashramas. These are the different stages of life. So within one person's lifetime, we will have these 4 stages. We then look at the 4 Purushotras. So these are the aims of life, the 4 aims of Hindu life to achieve dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. As we know, we keep hearing moksha is the ultimate aim in Hindu life. And then we look at the 4 samskaras. So these are the ceremonies, the 4 ceremonies. There are more ceremonies. There are many, many ceremonies in Hindu life, throughout a Hindu life, but we will just focus on 4. So you can see why we call this the 4x4, because there's 4 areas that we look at, and within each of them, there are 4 subsegments, sections. So typical Indian logical sort of thinking. So let's dive into the 4 varnas. So the word varna means order, color, or class. So the caste, you see, caste was really a later invention. This is never, caste is never mentioned in any of our scriptures. This is probably an English word, I think, actually, caste. I don't think we in Hindu, you know, Indians, we don't use this word caste at all.
It's a Portuguese origin, by the way.
Portuguese origin.
Yeah, the original word was called castos, and from castos it became caste.
Caste, thank you very much. And it has become used to describe classes. I mean, most countries would probably use class. You know, in the UK, we have a class system. We have working class, middle class, and you know, in theory, upper class. So most countries would refer to a class system, whereas we seem to become known, popularly known to have a caste system. The 4 varnas are based primarily on the ancient law books. So going back to what I said a few weeks ago, you know, we have Shruti and Smriti, and the law books are a guide only, and they evolve and change with time. They're not fixed. They don't come from the Vedas or the Upanishads. So this is nothing that these concepts, these ideas are not fixed. They evolve with time, and they're pretty much man-made as well. You know, they wasn't something that the rishis heard. There was nothing that the rishis were told, you must have a caste system to make yourselves a good Hindu society. So these were evolved because of maybe good reasons. So the 2 reasons I've heard of why the caste system evolved. One is actually, I've heard, I don't know how true this is, that it was actually a social experiment that, you know, in a way, if you group together people of the same skill set or mindset, then you can create through time, you know, a really strong community. So, you know, if you put all your intellectuals together and, you know, they stay within one group, and your workers together, and your I don't know, your people of action together, if you group them and tell them they must kind of, you know, really breed within that one sort of subset of their community, then you get the best entrepreneurs, the best physicians, the best potters. You know, that was a bit of a social experiment which went on too long and too far. The other thing I understand, well, and we'll get to the other thing. So as I say, it's Manu Smriti. So these are scriptures of ethics and morality, codes of conduct for individuals as well as society, and they evolve, nothing fixed here. So what are the 4 castes that we understand? And actually, before I go there, let me just go back. So what Jay Lakhani always used to say very, very clearly is that the hereditary caste system has no basis in Hinduism, absolutely no basis. It is not in the Upanishads, not in the Vedas. So the hereditary caste system, as we've come to know it, has no basis in Hinduism at all. So when you're writing, if you get an exam question, excuse me, on Hinduism, your first sentence really should be, the hereditary caste system has no basis in Hinduism. It's evolved, it's erroneously evolved. It's a cultural, societal thing, no basis in our Sanatan Dharma at all. But there are references to different types of people, so and different we all have different qualities, and there are references to different qualities within people, and this may determine what sort of role you may take in society. So there are those references, and I guess the other reason why the caste system might have evolved is that they've been misinterpreted. There's been misinterpretation of those ideas that we have different skill sets and they should be deployed differently, and that's been misused. So we'll get into that more, but let's go through the 4 different members of our class system. So there's firstly the Brahmins. This is the priestly or teaching classes. So whilst Krishna Bai and I are no way near, we're not born into a Brahmin family at the moment. In this role, we are teaching. So we would, in this role, be part of that caste. There's the Kshatriya, the ruler, the warrior class. So this is your rulers, your your soldiers, your people that really protect your community, protect your country, and guide it. Politicians, that sort of thing. Then there's the Vaishya. This is the merchants, business, and farming classes. So this is the commercial classes. Really, these are the classes that make commerce work, make industry work, make the community work in terms of distribution of products and food and all the things we need to live our lives. And then there's the Sudra class. This is the working class or the service providers. So the laborers, the helpers, the people that service in restaurants and places like that, the service providers, the working class. So they're the 4 main classes. You do need to know these classes or castes for the exam. So please do make sure you learn what each class is, what they do, and how to sort of write them, spell them. There's also the Dalits, which unfortunately is a reality, or was a reality, and is still a reality in some parts of India. And this is what is otherwise known as the untouchables. They were kind of given different names because it's always been a very difficult, how do you categorize somebody in this really horrible way where you say they're untouchable? And most people that have grown up here don't really have much idea of what this is, but there is a class of people in India, or was, which were not allowed to practice religion. They weren't allowed to go to temples. They weren't allowed to have particular jobs. They really had all the really dirty jobs, the cleaning the latrines, the toilets, the gutters, all of those jobs. They were really denied, and they were told that this was just what they were born into, and they could never escape this. Fortunately, with time, this has changed and laws have changed in India, but in some rural areas, it probably still persists, and it's a very, very sad tale, and not a very black mark on the Indian subcontinent, actually, that this was allowed to progress, and various historical reasons why we ended up with this caste system. As I say, again, I keep repeating, no basis in Hinduism, no basis in our religion to have this. It became a societal thing, a kind of a bit of a divide and rule. We keep the classes different, keep them separate. It's a protectionist thing, but has some very, very negative impact of that too. So let's have a look. So as I've said, let me just do all of that. So no basis for hereditary caste system in Hinduism, no authority from our scriptures. Probably a social custom, so it's become just evolved through a social custom that has done a lot of harm, as I say. There is reference in the Bhagavad Gita, which says that a Brahmin is a person who leads a selfless life, is God-centered, who is established in truth, in thought and words and deed, and who is content. So if you know anybody who is like this, then they can be categorized as a Brahmin. Whereas what we've done is we've said, you're a Brahmin if you're born into a Brahmin family. That's not what the Bhagavad Gita says at all. The Bhagavad Gita talks about qualities. If you've got these qualities, then you are a Brahmin. If you're, as I say, selfless life, you're interested only in the truth through word and deed. So that could be anybody in society. But what we ended up doing is saying, and again, it was probably a protectionist thing because you wanted to make sure that if you had a job, you wanted your sons and daughters, or sons to have a job. So you said, oh, well, Brahmins can only be those that are born into a Brahmin family. So we lost our way. We, as a society, as a culture, we lost our way here. But you can see the Bhagavad Gita doesn't say anything about being born into being a Brahmin. It does say such a person is very special and hence fit for religious work, like teaching religion or working in a temple. That's likely where it came from. Brahmin had those qualities, worked in a temple. And instead of looking to see whether the child of the Brahmin had those qualities and should continue that work, they just said, well, he's born into it, so he must have those qualities and continues. And then we made the dividing lines. Only Brahmins can work in temples. So according to the Bhagavad Gita, the nature of your thoughts and your nature decides your caste. So it's your qualities. If you're a man of action, you like action, then you fall into the warrior or the ruler kind of category. If you like academia, you're more likely to fall into the Brahmin category. If you like commerce, many people have a real taste for commerce and business, then you'd fall into that category. So that's what the Bhagavad Gita talks about. It's just your nature. And, even within one family, you could have 3 or 4 children with different natures. So the way the hereditary system works really makes no sense from a scriptural perspective. So as I say, the Brahmins are the thinkers, are the knowers. The Kshatriya are the doers, the men of action. The Vaishya provide food for the belly. There are commerce people, and the Sudras do the physical, more manual work. And in a way, you could even look at this as a body. The body, the head is where we do our thinking. The body does the doing. The belly is, where we get our energy, and then the feet do our work. So in a way, you could even look at a body and say the body has all of these elements to it. It's just another way of looking at it. So what we do often get examined in the test is, what's the perspective of the caste system historically, and what's the perspective of the caste system within Hindu life now? Because in the exam, what they all often ask is, how has Hindu life changed? What it was and what it is now. So when we look at these past and present perspective on Varna, we say again, and I keep repeating it because I really want you to be clear on this, that the caste system existed to preserve the privilege of the higher caste. So we said there was a perspective in India that the Brahmins were the highest caste, and then the 4 that we mentioned, they go in order. So it wasn't just that they were different castes, they actually had an order, the Brahmins at the top, and then the others follow down. So there was in the past, historically in the past, there was a thinking that the Brahmins are at the top, they're the highest caste, and the rulers and the commerce people, and then the workers. It's a bit like the English class system. So the English said, upper class, middle class, working class. So a similar sort of idea. And as I say, it was a bit of a social experiment at the time, which went on way too long. It should have ended. It should have been stopped, but it went on far too long. It did give some order to society. So, if your son was a carpenter and you taught them carpentry skills, then in the absence of a good education and training system, then it gave that order. You taught your son to be a potter, you taught your son to be a jeweler, and that gave good order, and it allowed the passing down of a trade and skills. But it stopped that competition. The negative side of it stopped competition. So you may have been born into a carpentry family and you had to become a carpenter, but actually your skills might have been as a tradesman or a banker, and it stopped really the progression. Diversity is what makes communities, economies, countries grow. You've got to let your best people do what they're best at. But if you say, well, if you're a carpenter's son, you've got to be a carpenter, you really limit your economic growth. So it did that harm. It stopped competition. So the Brahmins were able to stop others, taking over their position, their prime position, to stop people competing with them. And it protected trade. So good and bad. On balance, I would say ultimately bad. But there was some good. It gave order to society when there was no governmental order and not a good economy. There wasn't a good economy for jobs and trade to be established. And so if you're just passing it down through your generations, then it does protect your next generation. But it led to some very negative consequences. As I say, lack of diversity, opportunities, unequal treatment. You know, just because you were born into a particular caste, you know, you were treated badly, especially the untouchables, treated very, very badly. And the economy, as I say, stagnated because you didn't get the benefit of that diversity. Some really bad atrocities in the name of religion. So people said, well, the caste system is part of our religion. And so they perpetuated it. You know, they said it's part of our religions, therefore it has to stay. And therefore the poor untouchables remained where they were. And at a time, you know, even women were not able to worship and reach God, or the lower classes, which is, you know, a really big black mark on our culture. So in time, we had lots of Hindu reformers, and I'll talk about those in future classes, who said, this is wrong. This is not what the scriptures say. We've got it wrong. And they really did a lot to try and change those inequalities. And the law has caught up in India too, and it actually has outlawed some of the you know, behaviors such as not employing untouchables, that sort of thing. And in fact, it also pushed companies to have a more diverse workforce and employ people from all castes. So then looking at the present, does a class system exist in Hindu society today? What's made it change? The education system. So education was available to everybody. May it not have been, you know, as good for everybody, but it was available for everybody, and therefore that has reduced the impact of the caste system. So as I say, once you have an education system, if your father was a potter, then it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a potter. You can educate yourself into doing a profession or a job that suits your attributes, your skills. You know, you may be a great banker, for example, and the education system allows you to pursue whatever you're good at. We also had a lot of multiculturalism. So, you know, the British came into the country, the Portuguese came into the country, you know, and they really didn't have these caste ideas. So I think that helped reduce the caste system. And as I say, the law has outlawed discrimination on the basis of caste in India. And there was some positive discrimination as well, in that they had to employ a certain number of, I don't know whether it was untouchables or what it was, but there was some positive discrimination as well. Yeah. So it has empowered its lower castes through positive discrimination in jobs, education, and benefits. Oops, sorry, that's moved on, hasn't it?
No, just on your desktop. No, what are you seeing your desktop now?
Okay, let me just go back to. I can stop sharing. I only had one more slide actually, and the last slide was just really talking about the present. So what's the situation, and even in the UK? So we don't really have a caste system as such. Maybe in the chat, if we've got a minute, people can say whether they still believe we have a caste system. Do you still feel strongly that we have a strong caste system, or have we moved away from that? What do people think? Why don't you say yes or no in the chat? Yes, we have a caste system. No, we don't have a caste system. Oh, Jay's saying we do have a caste system. What I think we do have is we have a clan system more so now, especially in the UK, you know. Oh, everybody thinks we still do have it. It's interesting. So we definitely have more of a clan system. So we have, you know, the different Jats, so we have Luhanas and Mochis and different clans. But do we still have a caste system, a rigid caste system? Looks like everybody thinks we do. It's interesting. So does that mean you're saying that you cannot move out of, especially in marriages? No, because it's not written on our face what caste we are. Thought you could tell what by surname. Yeah, you can still tell by surname. That's true. And you're right, we can't become Brahmins or priests, but if we go back to what we mean by caste, if we mean by caste, it's your skills, your thought, then do we still have it? Community, yeah, people do want to know which community you're from. So let's have a look at the positives of the current. So this is my thinking. I think we don't necessarily have a caste system in that, you know, if I wanted to become a teacher, I can. If I want to become a doctor, I can. If I want to, you know, there's nothing stops me becoming a potter or a plumber. I can educate myself into those. So there's no barriers as such. And in theory, not in India either, but we still have a community structure. Yes, you're absolutely right. We still have, I'm part of the Luhana community. So we still have the Luhana community, and we have this, you know, the Vanya community or the Sikh community. We still have communities. And I would say actually on balance, those are a positive thing. They're a good thing. As long as we don't say, you're a part of the Luhana community and you can't mix with others, you can't marry others. To me, the benefits they bring are, you know, our older people get together in those communities, our younger people get together in those communities, keeps our culture alive. You know, when we go to our communities, we tend to celebrate our culture, we celebrate our food. Gita saying caste and profession are seen separate. Yes, yes. But traditionally, they wouldn't have been. Traditionally, you would see that caste and profession were very much linked. Now they are totally separate. I agree with you. Yeah. So I think there are benefits. And then some of the other questions you might get on caste and varna are sort of ethical. You know, was it ethical to have a caste system? And your answer to that is, on balance, no. You do the pros and cons. Gave structure to society. It meant that, you know, it was meant to be using the right skill set in the right place, but it got distorted. So on balance, the caste system was ethically and morally wrong, and it led to lots of negative impact. But, you know, there were benefits. It kept order, and ethically and morally now, the community structure is held together well, because as a sort of a consequence, as a lingering aspect of the caste system. A lot of the changes relate to changes as a result of being in the UK. They do. Does anybody have a perspective in India, Krishnabhai? Do you know where India is on the caste system, where people do?
I think if you go to cities, you probably find it's not a lot. But if you go to villages, it is still quite prevalent.
Right, right.
I mean, in general, I think you find the problem is the Brahmins. You know, their feeling of superiority, and as people have said on the chat, you can see that in this country as well. Although the Brahmin by name may be running a corner shop with girly magazines, but because he's born in a Brahmin family, he's just a feeling of superiority, and that is there. When you look at India, again, it's the same thing. You know, in terms of Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, you probably find there's not much difference there. But when it comes to Brahmins, they do want to hold their ground.
Hold that prime position.
And people allow them to do that as well.
Yes. Although I do recall on our last course, there was a lady who was from the Brahmin caste, and she said actually Brahmins in India now also really struggle because, you know, they find it very difficult to find work. There's less ritualistic sort of traditions, so they find it more difficult to find work now. You know, they're not asked to perform so many of the activities that they did in the past. So I guess there's different.
Yeah, I mean, Avni, I am Brahmin, and when my family is in Brahmin, and yeah, there are a lot of difficulties. I don't want to digress in another topic, but in India, it's because of the reservation systems now. Yeah. Brahmins are facing terrible problems. My brother is an activist in India currently fighting against the reservation. It's the same thing. The reservation should be based on your capabilities, your financial income and all that. But because of this caste system coming into reservation, Brahmins are facing terrible problems currently in India.
Yeah. So
the reverse discrimination. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Jay, you got it spot on there.
Yeah, but I just on the I think I said it in the last class hour is, you know, you showed the the body parts.
Yes.
And India, they always say the Shudras is always considered in India as the lower class, and in the body parts, the Shudras has given actually the feet as their place. So there are a lot of people in India, the old mentality is still in that, but I always said that is if you want to take the blessings of someone, you always touch the feet and not the head.
Yeah.
That delivers, that says it all.
It does. It does.
That-
It does.
Yeah.
And without the feet, you can't do anything. So we need all the body parts. We need all the different capability in our society to make society work for all of us. And to say one is better than the other, this is where the problems come in. I think it's discrimination, isn't it? So I don't think anybody would argue that a society should deploy their skills in the right way, but then to discriminate one against the other, to say one is superior to the other, this is when it leads to problems. And I think in India, it just got too far. The lines were too hard. Most cultures, the lines weren't as harsh as ours. Ours was pure hereditary. You could not move from one to the other. You could not marry from one to the other. And they used religion, unfortunately, to perpetuate that sort of social protectionism. And it was wrong. It should never have been done. Still continues in some places. Maybe now the Brahmins are finding there's negative impact on them, but it's something that we need to eradicate. But I still do think that having communities is a good thing. Having communities and community unity, as long as we don't discriminate against other communities, there are positive benefits, for the elderly, for the young. We do have a lot in common with people in our own communities. And as long as we don't discriminate and say we are better than others, then there are benefits to having our communities too.
I think the key words here are hereditary and hierarchical. Yeah. Nobody should be stuck in any class because they were born into a family, and nobody should be discriminated because they're lower or higher. Everybody's equal. And if we go back to the analogy of the human body of Niben, when you think about what's the best class, Shudras. Without the Shudras, the rest wouldn't exist. The Shudras support the rest of society. Then comes the Vaishyas. Without the merchants and without the people who actually earn the money, anybody higher than that cannot be supported. So the Shudras are perhaps, in my view, perhaps the most important. They support the rest of society through their manual work.
They do. And that became so prevalent in the pandemic, didn't it? Because, most of us ended up locked up in our homes, but the people that we needed to keep the economy going were the healthcare workers, the train operators, the police, the truck drivers. Without them, we would have had nothing. Most of us were able to, the others were able to go and lock ourselves in our rooms and our homes, but those people had to continue, otherwise we would have had no food.
And volunteers, think about all those volunteers who did all the unpaid work.
All the vaccinations, getting the vaccinations to us. So it absolutely proved, and they became the key workers.
Yes.
The healthcare workers became the key workers. And I remember many were saying, I'd always been kind of treated as the, not important. Now suddenly I'm a key worker, and they were able to go to work. They were able to keep us all safe. So I think the pandemic totally proved that without the workers, as we call them, even in this class, in this country, society just collapses. It just breaks down. We can't just have politicians or priests.
No, politicians have parties during Christmas, don't they?
Yeah. We're 6 minutes over, but thanks everybody for your attention. And I'm not here next week, so Vijay Pai will do a session, I think, on scriptures, just to have a taster session, and Krishna Pai will continue with God's. Thanks very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I'll see you same time, same place next week.
Yep. Namaste.
Yep. Namaste, everybody.
Thank you. We'll be getting these slides, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll put them on the Google Drive.
Yeah, because I was writing, then I stopped towards the end.
No. We'll send you the slides.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Krishnabhai, do we need to stay on, or are we set for next week?
I think we're set for next week, aren't we?
Yeah. I'm not here, as I say, but I think Vijaybai is doing the sessions.
Okay. Have a good
Okay.
week.
Have a good week. Bye all.
I just posted a message on the WhatsApp, Krishna.